Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Future Dimensions 360. As you guys know, in our last tutorial, we had talked about error boundaries. How we can make fallback UI with the help of error boundaries, or in case of any error in any component, how we can log them or how we can write it in the logs documents. In today's tutorial, we will be learning higher order components. What are higher order components? When we need higher order components? And why we need higher order components. In today's tutorial and the coming two tutorials, we will be learning in detail about higher order component. So let's go ahead and try to make one example to make it clear that why we need higher order component. Let me go ahead to our project. I will go ahead and I'll create one new component by right click on the event, and I will say new file. In the new file, I'll say click counter.js. I have a new function named as click counter.js. I'll create RCE one class component. Inside class component, I will create a button and I will say click click X times. So what I have to do is whenever I want to click this counter, this button, I want to increase this X. Let me go ahead to my app.js file. I'll try to import this one, click counter. I had imported it. Let me go to my browser and see my click X time is appearing. Now what I want is when I will click here, this X should increment as counter. So what I have to do is I have to create here one state by using rconst. In that one, I'll use counter, and the initial state for the counter, I'll make it 0, and then let me make indentation. After that, what I want here is once I click this button on click, I will say this dot increment. Okay, I have to make this function also increment counter. I have to make this function as arrow function here to increment my counter. How can I increment the counter? This dot set state. Inside set state, I'll pass a callback, and the callback will take previous state as a parameter, and what it will return for me, it will return for me the new state, with increment in the counter. How? I'll say counter, the new counter equals to previous state dot counter plus 1. That's it. It will increment for me. Now I can click and it will increment for me counter. So instead of X, I have to show a state here. So how can I show the state? I have to make const destructuring the state, and I will say counter equals to this dot state. I had destructured my state, and now I can change X with curly braces counter. Now you can say what it is saying. Object is not iterable with a y. Const, it should be curly braces. Very sorry. Yeah, because iterable mean array. If it's array, then it will be like that. So I had reloaded it. It's clicked 0 time. When I move forward, I clicked on it. It's clicked 1 time, click 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As many as time I want, I'm able to click and increment the counter. Now I had implement my project very normally, very okay. Now what happened here is client came, customer came again to me, and he wants me to increment, not to add another increment on on mouse hover. It'll say like make new requirement. What is that? Make a tag of h1, inside it write some tags, and as soon as my mouse hover that tag, you have to increment the counter. So what I have to do in that scenario, I have to make another file named as hover counter .js RCE class component. Inside this one, I will say h1 h1, I will say hover x times. Same I have to do. I have to import this one here, hover counter. I will hover the counter and I will just import it and I'll show you in my browser. Hover X time. Now what I want is as soon as my mouse hover this text, it should increment this X. What I have to do is I have to create a state and increment. So instead of creating state and increment, I'll copy this one. I'll paste it here directly. So it should work for me straight as it is. Like I will make it back. I'll just fix the indentation a bit. Yep. And then I'll copy the destructuring of state as well. I'll paste it here and instead of X, I will say counter. Okay, now here what I have to do is on mouse hover. I have to call the function on mouse hover. Where is hover on mouse? MOUSE on mouse hover. On mouse down, I can say on mouse down is there or on mouse enter. Okay, let me say on mouse enter. As soon as the mouse is entering into the text, it will just increment my counter. This is my statement. So what I have to do, see, as soon as the mouse is entering into the text area, my counter is increasing. This is increasing also. Okay, now two functionalities are implemented as per the client requirement. Now client came again. Client is telling now again do one thing. Instead of hover, what you have to do is you have to create an input, and in the input as soon as user focus, you have to increment the counter again. So what actually we are doing here in our project, we are copy pasting our counter, we are copy pasting the state of counter as well. So we are actually duplicating the functionalities again and again in our components. That's not fair. In case we have 1000 components, we will be copy pasting 1000 times increment counters on large scale application. That will consume a lot of space complexity and time complexity as well. And we are not going to write robust code that is reusable. So in that kind of scenarios, here is the concept of actually higher order component comes into the picture. How we can deal with that? Let me go ahead to my presentation that I had prepared for you to explain in a more better way. In our current example, we have hover counter, we have click counter. Let me go back a little bit and I'll show you guys here. Yeah, I have two counters. One is hover counter and one is click counter. So what happened here is in hover counter and click counter, I have two common functionalities. That is counter that is available in the state. What if I will make a parent component and I will lift up the state and I will pass the counter values as a props to my child. In current scenario, I can do these things. It's very normal and it's very easy in my current scenarios. I can make a parent component and with the help of state uplifting method, I can combine the functionalities of both component in one parent component. But in case why this will happen? This will happen if your all counter exists on the same level. What if your hover component and click counter component are not on the same level? There are some random component B, there is some random component A, then there is parent component. So how you can pass the common functionalities for a couple of components like 5 6 components as a props? That's not fair, and you cannot control that easily also. So in these kind of applications where your multiple functionalities that you are implementing or you are duplicating the code, you can, like a counter is an example, you are duplicating the counter code in these kind of application where your components are not on the same level. You need by all means higher order component. So let's go ahead in the coming video and let's discuss higher order component in detail as well. For today's tutorial, that's it. I hope you guys like it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe our channel. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.